Habit is a redundant set of automatic, unconscious thoughts, behaviors, and emotions that's acquired through repetition. A habit is when you've done something so many times that your body actually knows how to do it better than your conscious mind. It's a habit. So people wake up in the morning and they run through the same routine every single day. And the routine is mapped out neurologically in their brain. If they have the thought of the coffee maker, they make the choice to go over there. They do the thing to make the coffee. They have the experience of drinking it, and they feel the emotion associated with it. That becomes a pattern. It becomes more automatic. It becomes second nature. So we have a series of these redundant patterns then, and in time, we lose our free will to a set of programs, and the body is programmed into the predictable future based on what we've done in the past. And that's how we lose the free will to a set of programs. So that habituation is the predictable future, and that's the known. And other people wake up in the morning and they romance their memories of the past. They think about the problems that they have in their lives, and those problems are connected to certain people and certain objects and certain things at certain times and places. And since the brain is a record of the past, the moment they remember that problem, they're thinking in the past. And every one of those problems has an emotion that's associated with it. So the moment the person feels unhappy, the moment the person feels fear, the moment the person feels unworthy, the moment the person feels sad, now the body's in the past. Because thoughts are the language of the brain and feelings are the language of the body, and how we think and how we feel creates our state of being. And so it's that thought and that feeling, it's that image or that memory and the emotion, it's that stimulus and response that's conditioning the body to become the mind of that emotion. And now the body is so objective that it does not know the difference between the real life experience that's creating the emotion and the emotion that that person is creating by thought alone. And the body's reliving the same past experience over and over again. And if we can't think greater than how we feel, or feelings have become the means of thinking, then we're thinking in the past. And if we believe that our thoughts have anything to do with our destiny, then our future is going to look a lot like our past. So that familiar past also is the known. And so what we discovered is that if you could teach a person to, when their body's sitting in a meditation, as an example, and it's off schedule, it's used to feeling angry at 8 o'clock in the morning because it watches the news. The person experiences traffic every day. They get 11 o'clock, they check their emails, and they start judging other people. You know, there's a set of familiar emotions that person has been living by. We discovered that if a person can sit past that memory, that they can sit past that emotion that causes them to get aroused, to get frustrated, to get impatient, that's the emotion that causes the person to quit. And they have this conclusion that they can't meditate, or they can't focus, or they have ADD. It's a story they tell themselves about the past. We discovered, though, that when a person sits past those thoughts that say, I can't, it's too hard, I'll never change, I need a brain scan, there's something wrong with me, it's my mother's fault. And they're curious to see what's on the other side of that thought. When their body gets aroused and frustrated, instead of giving up and saying, I have too many things to do, that they actually learn a way to settle the body back down into the present moment. And it's David versus Goliath. And every time we can become conscious that we get emotional, we get frustrated, we get impatient, and we settle the body down, we're executing the will now that's greater than the program, and the body is no longer the mind. The person is now becoming conscious of their unconscious self, and it takes an enormous amount of energy. It takes an enormous amount of awareness to stay present, because to stay present is to be in the unknown. That's when you can't predict the future, and that's not when you're remembering the past. And the unknown in the program that we have as biological creatures is a scary place. It's better to run from the unknown than to hang out in it. And yet when a person wants to quit and give up, and their body wants to get up and do something, and they catch themselves, that they do that and they bring their body back down into the present moment, that's a victory. And when the body gets frustrated and it's what wants to be the mind, and the person settles the body down, is telling the body it's no longer the mind, that it's the mind. And that's taming the animal. That's taming the animal self. And the repetition of that over time causes the body to finally start to surrender into the present moment. And there's an enormous liberation of energy that takes place in the nervous system. And they're in the unknown, and nothing scary, nothing dangerous happens to them. And all of a sudden, they can be more present in their life. And where we place our attention is where we place our energy. And when you're in the present moment, you have a lot of energy and a lot of awareness. It turns out the people who stretch themselves past that point are the people that have the most change. They're curious to see what's on the other side of what's familiar and known. And instead of, I don't know, I'm making stuff up, scrolling through TikTok, getting on the text, instead of thinking of 1,000 reasons that you're too busy to sit past that, or to say, today's not a good day to meditate. A person who's curious, who's uncompromising, that keeps doing that over and over again, all of a sudden starts to biologically change. Because if the environment signals the gene, and it does, and the end product of an experience in the environment is an emotion, a person who's living by the same emotion every single day is signaling the same genes in the exact same way. And genes make proteins, and proteins are responsible for the structure and function of the body. And the expression of proteins is the expression of life. And that person now they're feeling certain feelings that are familiar to them, that are influencing the very same thoughts, and the very same thoughts make the very same chemicals for them to feel the exact same way. And it takes crisis, and it takes trauma, and it takes disease, and it takes diagnosis, and it takes betrayal, and it takes loss for people to finally make up their mind to change. We discovered that if you keep thinking the same way, if you keep making the same choices, if you keep doing the same things, if you keep recreating the same experiences, and you keep feeling the same emotions, your biology is going to stay the same because you're the same. There's nothing to that. But we discovered also, give people information, sound scientific information, and let science be the contemporary language of mysticism. Let science demystify the mystical and challenge the mind of an individual to combine quantum physics with neuroscience and neuroendocrinology and psychoneuroimmunology and the mind-body connection and epigenetics. I always say to our audiences, turn to someone next to you and say, I'm not afraid of the word epigenetics. You know, people get afraid of that word. Electromagnetism. We want to make it. All of those sciences point the finger at possibility. And if knowledge is power, then knowledge about yourself is self-empowerment. And it's not enough to just learn it. This is a time in history where it's not enough to know. This is a time in history to know how. The application of that philosophical, theoretical information, we discovered that every time you learn something, you're making a lot of connections in your brain. 1 hour of focused concentration on one concept, one idea, doubles the number of connections in your brain if you're present with that information. There's physical evidence in your brain as a result of information in your environment. The brain is mapping information neurologically. If you don't repeat it, if you don't think about it, if you don't review it, those circuits prune apart within hours or days. So if learning is making synaptic connections, then remembering is maintaining and sustaining that information. And people have to think about it because it's so much easier to forget this information than to remember it. And they got to remind themselves and reproduce that same level of mind. So what we discovered is if you set up the conditions in the environment and you give people the proper instructions, if they can get their behaviors to match their intentions, they can get their actions equal to their thoughts, if they get their mind and body working together, they should have a new experience. And the experience then causes jungles of neurons to be organized into more complex networks. That's what experience does. And we understood that the more the person can understand what they're doing and why they're doing it, the how gets easier, and they'll assign meaning to the act. And when they assign meaning to the act, they switch on the prefrontal cortex, the crowning achievement of the human being. And now, the frontal lobe is all about business. It wants an outcome. And when that occurs, and the person actually has the new experience, the end product of the experience is called a feeling or an emotion. The moment you feel unlimited, the moment you feel free, the moment you feel abundant, you are teaching your body chemically to understand what your mind is intellectually understood. So knowledge is for the mind and experience is for the body, and we're embodying the truth of the information. The information is no longer in the brain. The information is actually in the body now. And that information from that experience actually selects and instructs new genes. And the person's changing their genetic destiny. If you've done it once, it must mean you should be able to do it again. And doing it over and over again, neurochemically, neurologically and chemically, begins to condition the mind and body to begin to work as one. And when you've done it so many times that you no longer have to think about it, it's automatic, it's second nature, you've mastered that knowledge, you've become that knowledge. You're in a new state of being. It's innate in you. It's who you are.